I was perusing Reddit the other day. Big mistake. If you've if you've ever been on there already, you could tell. Big mistake. My biggest mistake, truly. Um, I stumbled across a post that really kind of just made me put my phone down for a little bit because I had to just kind of fully digest what I was looking at. It's a screenshot of an old Twitter post from a guy from a couple years back. It said something along the lines of, I really hate when drug addicts get clean and then they all of a sudden become really super religious. Uh, and it made me think about like I saw that and I was like, wow, that looks like something I would have said 12 years ago. That's crazy. That looks like something I would have said 10 years ago. Because I was that atheist. That was me. I'm not proud of it. I'm in fact rather ashamed of it. But today I just wanted to kind of talk about that journey, that transition. You kind of away from being deconstructed and being so anti-religious, so anti-belief that I started to hate people. I hated a lot of people when I was a teenager because that was my belief system. I believed that people who were religious were inferior. I believed that people who had these thought processes and believed in something beyond what they could observe and that science could prove were stupid. Also extended it towards a general misogyny, although I think that had more to do with, me and my mother's tumultuous, abusive relationship growing up. But that did also kind of link towards me being an atheist as well. I believed in, this is really embarrassing to admit, but I had a very long phase in my early teenage years where I was like super hardcore into the concept of evolution to the point where um, I was insistent on, well, men and women have genetic roles that are assigned to them. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, well, in terms of evolution, typically, men were the hunters, women were the gatherers. Tribes have these, established roles for these genders, and that's what they should be doing. It shouldn't really be deviating from something like that. So I looked at like female athletes, like women in STEM, like stuff like that, with like a weird kind of contempt, where I was like, well, you're going against the evolutionary order, And as a non-believer, I was like, well, science is the determining all complete factor for that. So, why would we ever argue with what's worked for centuries, for thousands and thousands of years? Why would we change that? Um, and again, very embarrassing to admit, but important to admit as well, because that was a core tenet of who I was back then. I was the Reddit atheist when I was 14 years old. Um, Fedora and all. I had a fedora. I did. I very much did. I, I later I redeemed the fedora. I wore it to like jazz shows and stuff like that I played with my school band after I converted. So I did redeem the fedora. The fedora became cool. I won a best soloist award in it, so it's okay. But I did have a fedora from when I was very young, and had this contempt for so many people. And I think that's my biggest problem with atheism as a whole. Um, because I remember very distinctly how I felt, and I can see it coming through, especially with atheists on the internet, particularly social media websites like Reddit and TikTok. You see some of it on YouTube as well, but not less frequently. Um, I don't really use Instagram or anything else, but I do definitely see it on Reddit and TikTok in particular. Um, Again, I want to preface this by saying I'm a Christian Universalist. I don't give a fuck what you believe. I think at the end of time, if you're going to accept God, he'll welcome you, even after you're dead. I believe that hell is, reformative, not punitive. It's not permanent. It's supposed to be like jail. There is scripture to back that up as well. So it's kind of how my faith has evolved over the years. That at the end of the day, what matters here is that you do your best to care about other people, the people that God has put in your life. The people that even the people you hate, you're supposed to love them too. That's your job. So, as long as you try to do that, um, you know, even if you're like a bad person, like you get once you get to the afterlife, I personally believe that there's like, an intervention. Some people will be punished in hell temporarily, but there is opportunity for reform and growth, even spiritually after death. So at the end of the day, I don't care what you believe while you're here. It doesn't matter to me, because at the end of the day, we're going to be seeing each other up there anyway, in my eyes, right? So if you are the most staunch, like, I hate religion, like, fucking religious people have intellectual problems, religion holds society back people, I'll see you later. I'll see you in a couple decades or whatever. But, so I just want to preface it like that. I'm not like coming at general lack of belief. If you look around you and you go, I see no evidence, I choose not to believe in anything, fine, so be it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't infringe upon me. I'm not being oppressed. Like, people blow this shit out of proportion way too much, and I kind of want to ground it. And I will say 90% of atheists, along with, I'd say, 80 to 90% of religious people in the real world are pretty chill. Most of the people that you talk to are pretty, laid back, down to earth, have a good head on their shoulders, are reasonable, won't get into arguments, won't get into fights, won't, put themselves above other people for no reason. Actually, for both of those, I'll lower it to 75 to 80. But still, a good majority of people who go outside and, do things and socialize and have a life outside of the internet tend to be fine with that kind of stuff. It's the people who aren't engaging in a life outside of the internet, who bury themselves in social media. And I know it's the classic touch grass argument, so I'm not going to like expound on that too much, but I notice it a lot more online. I don't notice it at all in person. I have yet to meet an atheist who's like rude to me about my faith. And I have yet to be rude to an atheist about their lack of belief, because in person, and even for me, in person and online should be the same. Respectful, dignified, calm, but unfortunately that's, not how it translates. So there were a couple of things that really changed my mind. The first and foremost was, obviously, I had a lineup of traumatic events and mistakes throughout like kind of the middle of my high school career that I did talk about in my high school video way back when, that I ended up having to switch schools twice. I ended up going to 3 different high schools in the span of 4 years, which really fucking sucked. The first time wasn't too hard, because that school I was being relentlessly bullied, partially also for my asshole atheist, persona was not popular with people, and I didn't really recognize why. Having autism made it hard to kind of adapt and pivot myself, so it just kept getting worse and worse to the point where I got doxxed at another school, and people were sending me pictures of gore and shit for like weeks to my phone. So that was easy. That was an easy leave, and if anything, that kind of entrenched me more in my beliefs. It's like that what's the word I'm looking for? There's like a psychological, there's psychological evidence that like when you're presented with an aggressive, opposing belief, you like kind of firmly stance yours a little bit more, even if what you believe might be wrong or might be disproven by the evidence. You kind of ignore that because you don't want to be wrong. That was me. So I was being directly confronted with a bad personality. And not to excuse what they did. I mean, you shouldn't be doxing students and asking people to send them gore. Like, that's fucked up. But I was never popular at that school, but I didn't realize that it was, because I was an asshole. I, more just was kind of like, oh, well, they just don't get it. They're just stupid. They don't get it. And they might have been a little bit stupid. I think bullying is stupid, but, potato, that's a whole another can of worms, I'm sure, for a different day. The second high school hit harder. I really did enjoy it a lot more. Felt more like home. And I think, well, because the week in between my leaving and my new school, I had a week where I was like, I had nowhere. I basically had nowhere to go. And that week, because I don't think people at this school liked me either, right? And so once, sure, I kind of didn't believe that it was my fault. The second time I was like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Like, is there something that I'm doing wrong here to create these issues? Like, why does this keep happening to me? And I sat with myself for that week, and like, just high levels of introspection made me realize just how obnoxiously wrong I was about so much. That, like, yeah, maybe I don't believe in God, but I'm not objectively superior to anybody else around me just because I don't believe in anything. Like, that's not how that works. I had a conversation with my father, and I talked to him about that realization. He told me, he goes, I'm glad you realized that, because that mindset is what justified slavery for so long. Just thinking that you were objectively superior because you were white and you were smarter. That's it. And it created a system that exploited all kinds of people for thousands of years. And I kind of like sat back and I was like, oh my, like, I never really thought about it from that perspective before. You thinking that you are superior to somebody else is a slippery slope into being able to justify some of humanity's worst decisions. And I never thought about it from that perspective before, because I'd never been humbled at that point before. And not so effectively before either. It was also during that week I prayed for the first time. Just kind of out of I was a Hail Mary, it was a desperation. Not the prayer Hail Mary, it was the football Hail Mary. I didn't actually pray a Hail Mary. But it was a desperation play. It was a last-ditch effort. I realized in that moment I really didn't have anywhere else to look. I felt so alone, so horrible about myself. Sorry, it is 2:30 a.m. where I'm recording this right now. It's my bad. I felt so alone. I felt so mortified, embarrassed. And so I literally it was a quick conversation. I was like, look, God, I don't believe in you, but if you're real, just like, let me get out of this unscathed and figure this out. And maybe you and I can have a chat. And days after that, I got accepted into the school that I wanted to go to for the online component. And I got the performing arts tryout. And 2 weeks after that, I got into the performing arts school itself. So after that, I was kind of a paradigm shift where I was like, okay, everything kind of just fell into place for me exactly the way that I wanted it to. And I just asked him for it like days ago. So that was like my personal experience, right? Obviously my personal testimony is important, but it's not the main focus of what I wanted to kind of talk about here. Because some people have personal testimony like that and some people don't. Like it really just kind of depends. The thing that scared me away from atheism the most was exactly what my dad talked to me about, and what I realized is ego. And it's something that exists in religion too. I'm not trying to like stand out here and be like, well, non-believers are the only people that do this stuff. That's not true. There's plenty of quote unquote Christians, Catholics, people like that who go into religion doing bad things and go, oh, well, it's okay because Jesus forgives me. So it's okay. I can be like this. Or the other one that you also see is, well, I'm a believer and you're not. I'm going to heaven and you're not. So I just, sucks to be you. See you later. You'll get that too. But the thing with atheism and with atheists on the internet in particular, and with myself, a decade ago, that I know I did was, I'd see that behavior and I'd get upset about it and I'd call it out, and rightfully so. But then I would turn around and I judge women. For me personally, what I did was I would judge women for being successful. I'd feel, superior because I have, the hunter genetics. I'm supposed to be the one, doing the masculine thing, getting the job, providing for the family. Seeing successful women was intimidating to me. It felt wrong, and I judged them for it. I thought that they were failing themselves by doing that. And if you can't see the hypocrisy in that statement, like, I just don't know what to tell you. I really genuinely don't. I was hypocritical to the bone in that regard. Looking at Christians doing this thing where they feel better than others because they have a redemption no one else has, and then proceeding to feel better than others because I had a Y chromosome that women don't have. Like, you get what I'm saying? That AFAB people, I'll say, don't have, right? You get what I'm saying? Like, I was a hypocrite to the core. And with other atheists I've seen in my interactions with them and reading their posts and whatnot on the internet, I try to stay away from it, but sometimes TikTok throws those stupid little, like, AI generated text things on my For You page, and I just read them real quick. I see the same fucking thing. I see people, like, denouncing religion, thinking that, you know, being a believer in anything is holding society back. You know, I despite, you know, Christianity doing things like inventing the hospital and whatever, but regardless, you know, thinking about, like, religion holding society back as a whole, like, misinformed takes, the same old, like, 5 or 6 hypothetical scenarios that they've been throwing at religion for the last 2 centuries. And then I see that, and then I'll, like, sometimes I'll click on the account and I'll scroll through their posts and see what else they talk about. And I like, one, for example, I saw that really just made me laugh obnoxiously, was somebody bragging about, you know, it was some non-binary person talking about, like, I know that I'm more intelligent than you the second you bring up God in a conversation. And it was just them, like, filming themselves with some cheesy music in the background. I go on their profile, and, like, 3 or 4 scrolls down, it's them being like, it was some sort of similar post where it's just them staring at the camera, and the caption was, people always say, walk a mile in my shoes, but I don't know, I'd never do cocaine. And then the caption was something along the lines of, imagine getting addicted to drugs. Couldn't be me. Like, you pride yourself on not needing a book to tell you what's right and wrong. You pride yourself on feeling like you are superior to, you know, Christians because, oh, well, you know, my morals are better. My system of living is better because I understand all this stuff, but without being told by some book. I don't need some invisible sky daddy to tell me these things. And then you proceed to turn around and shit on, like, many members of society who struggle with this thing. Addiction is a literal mental disorder, is a brain disease. And yet you look at it with this contempt, with this judgment. You feel better about yourself rather than feeling sympathy and concern for the victim, for somebody who's struggling with that. You feel superiority and cockiness. And let me tell you something right now. You might need the book. You might brag about not needing the book, but if you look at a member of society who's going through something to the point where they feel like they need to do drugs, or I've seen other atheists, I've seen similar things where I've clicked on somebody's profile and I've seen them, like, denouncing suicide. Like, oh, suicide victims are so weak. Such a selfish act. It's like, yeah, I guess technically you could consider it selfish, but do you really need to be that rude about it? Can't we just have a conversation? I mean, you don't know what that person has to go through to get to that point where they feel like they have to take their lives, man. Think. If you're going to purport to be such a standard of moral authority, then enact that. Be moral. Be sympathetic. Be empathetic. You mock Christians all the time for lacking empathy, and then you proceed to turn around and do the exact same thing. And I did the exact same thing for years. I did the same fucking thing. I would mock traditional Catholics, the Catholic schools I went to, being like, how could a God, you know, how could people believe in a God that does all these horrible things, that allows for children to die, that allows for, you know, sickness and whatever. And then I proceed to go and be a part of that exact same sickness, so to speak. I then proceed to be a blight on humanity myself. by being an asshole. And again, I'm going to clarify this right now. I'm not calling atheists a blight on humanity. I'm calling assholes who also happen to be atheists a blight on humanity, because assholes are a blight on humanity. I think that, like, people who lack empathy, who lack sympathy, who lack compassion and care and love for their neighbor, whether you believe or not, are problematic. I genuinely believe that. I think they need prayer. I think they need help. I think you should seek therapy if you're struggling to empathize with a certain group of people. I really think it's as simple as that, you know? So, I'm not trying to paint an entire belief like this. I'm not pointing the finger, because I know damn well there's plenty of people who call themselves Christians who do the exact same thing. And I think they are equally bad, if not worse, because hypothetically they should know better, right? If they have the book and they think the book's all, you know, all encompassing, all moral or whatever, they should really know better. And I agree with that. I agree with that sentiment. But, like, I will never, ever be able to associate myself with atheism ever again, because I see so many of them pride themselves on knowing better than the book, building their entire platform on thinking that they know better than, you know, something that brings people comfort and rest and peace in times of struggle, and just shitting all over it, and then proceeding to also just not be good paragons of morality anyway. I don't see them volunteering on weekends, you know, or in their spare time at food shelters or animal shelters or homeless shelters. Food pantries. I don't think they need to shelter food. I'm sorry, it's 2 a.m. like I said. But I don't see. I used to volunteer every week at the animal sanctuary near my house growing up, as well as I worked for Toys for Tots for a while, and there was a food pantry that my church worked with growing up as well. Even though I wasn't like super Catholic, I did enjoy going there and helping organize their stuff every weekend. And I would say confidently, 19 out of 20 people that were there were some form of religious person, whether that be Christian, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist. I met and saw and talked to plenty of people. And only every so often did I see one person who was either agnostic or a non-believer. And it would, like, when it would come up. Look, guys, I don't give a fuck if you think you need the book or not. I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm not going to... some dude on the internet's not going to convince you. I don't give a fuck, okay? But nobody should feel comfortable or confident with being a hypocrite. If you're going to purport to be a paragon of morality, even without the book, then be a paragon of morality without the book. Stop putting down your fellow man for believing in a sky daddy. Stop putting down your fellow man for getting addicted to drugs. In my case, I needed to stop, you know, being a misogynist and thinking that women are, you know, have a role that they're designed for. If you're going to purport to be that, you need to back up your word. You can't just sit there on the internet and score brownie points and went, oh, I outsmarted the Christians today. Go out there and help your fellow man either way. Not just your friends and your family. That's easy. Everybody can do that. Go help a stranger. The next time you walk by a homeless person on the street, give them $5. Donate to a local charity. Go to a hospital and greet some people. Volunteer for something that my friend always recommends is hospice work. Like, you gotta back this shit up, man. You know, and it was that hypocrisy that felt so much more dangerous to me once I had my eyes opened than anything else. I saw it in myself. I hated the person that I was becoming. I saw it in the people I surrounded myself with on my online communities. Feeling so superior because I thought I was smart. Because I thought that I knew something that the rest of, you know, my school, my Catholic school, and, you know, the people around me didn't know. And then proceeding to bash an entire group of people in the same day. A big part of my coming to Christ was understanding that all people are created equal before God. Literally every single one of us. And that's a big reason why I am now a progressive Christian today, progressive Christian universalist, because I I kind of turned it completely around to the other extreme where I understand, like, women, men, gender non-conforming people of all types, transgender people, anybody on the LGBTQ spectrum anywhere. Like, at the end of the day, God still made you. That's my belief. I don't care. Yes, I think gay people should be able to get married in a church. Yes, I believe all people are equal, like all races, all everything. So, like, he so totally transformed my heart in the years that I started to come to Christianity that now I'm the complete opposite. Being a believer, I understand now that our design, there's more to it than just, a couple as cells and bones and skin. There's something else in there that makes us unique, that makes animals have cells and bone and skin. There's something in us that makes us unique. And that something is in every single person, even the person that you hate the most. And that needs to be recognized, respected, and cherished, regardless of race, gender, class, sexual identity, anything like that. Any of these protected things, they're protected for a reason because we all share them. So, yeah, that was a big part of my transformation. I want to leave this off with just one little last anecdote. If you're still watching while you're a champion, this is my longest commentary ever. And I did ramble a lot, but something that I think it was James Telleraco. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, but he's running in Texas for a state representative. Phenomenal Christian, phenomenal man. Highly recommend you check him out. And if you're in Texas somehow, and if a Texan is somehow watching this, I implore you, check him out and maybe consider voting for him because he is an absolute gem of man and a wonderful example of what Christianity should be. I think he was quoting somebody else, but he talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast when he was a guest there, and he said, and it's stuck with me ever since then, is Christianity is a test of how much you love the one you love the least. He goes, it's not a test of whether you love Jesus, because everybody can do that. Jesus is even atheists love Jesus. He was pretty lovable, pretty cool guy. The test of Christianity is if you love Judas. You can only love God the same amount as the person that you love the least. Jesus calls you to pray for your enemies just as much as he calls you to pray for your friends. Even non-believers, even the pagans, even people who have completely different views on faith can pray for and can be there for their friends and family. That's good. Of course, it is a good thing. But we are called to go deeper than that. We are called to pray for our enemies and to be there for our enemies and try to help them find the light so that way they can become better people. And even if that means, then that doesn't mean that you have to, stay in toxic relationships or, not cut off a bad parent. I cut off my mother, so believe me, I'm a shining example of setting boundaries. But prayer, support can come in many different forms than direct support, and so you're encouraged to do all of that, even for the people that you love the least. You shouldn't be hating, so even the people you love the least, you're called to care for. And I think. The atheists who purport to know more than the book seem to forget that part quite a bit. Because I see so many of them calling for, death of people that they disagree with. I see so many of them insulting people. And again, like feeling superior over other people for things that really you shouldn't be. Like, clowning over drug addicts, alcohol addicts, religious believers. Even disabled I've seen a couple times, and it's out there on TikTok. It's pretty brutal. TikTok's pretty brutal. So I think even if you don't believe, and even if you choose never to believe, that's still a handy little thing to take with you. Even the people that you hate, you can still recognize their humanity. You can still love them for that part of them. And you can choose to see that side, even in the worst moments. So I implore you to try that if you got this far, whether you're a believer or non-believer. Anyways, that was fun. This is 30 minutes now, my longest commentary ever. I hope you guys are enjoying the gaming stuff. I'm really enjoying putting it together. The new Sonic episode should be out sometime this week, so keep an eye out for that. In other news, I'm going to do a little bit more of these. I really do enjoy doing these for you guys, so yeah, feel free to stick around, and thanks for checking me out. I'll see you around.